waterboarding.
They're talking about wakeboarding. The thing about wakeboarding, every trick is an invert.
Backside.
Air railies.
A new dimension.
Everybody is going huge.
What do you think about waterboarding? I said, I like it a lot, but I don't think it's tough enough.
You do your prep.
Oh, I got a lot of prep.
You do your prep.
We probably did 6 hours last night, a full prep on you. So
Really? Who's we?
just me and a couple beers.
I like that. I like that.
Oh man! All right, welcome back to the Grab Matters podcast. Today we got Erik Ruck on. He's an OG wakeboarder, involved with Ronix wakeboards now. Square One. He's got a stacked resume, so he's kind of done it all and won it all. How you doing, Erik?
Doing excellent.
Nice to have you on here.
Glad to be on the show.
Glad to have you on. I got a quick question here. Who shot first, Han or Greedo?
Who? What?
Who shot first, Han or Greedo? Han Solo.
You know, dang, that is a good question. I'm gonna have to say Han.
You think so?
I mean, Han pretty much knew the situation he was in. He knew, job was coming after him, and he's taking care of business.
Taking care of business as usual.
Yeah.
I did a little. I know you're pretty into Star Wars, right?
Yeah, I dig it.
Yeah, I did a little deep dive on Han versus Greedo, and I think that's the consensus is Han shot first.
Yeah.
He's not fucking around.
No.
I'm actually curious about that Star Wars experience. I kind of overheard you talking about it last time I was down here at Disney, like full on experience. So I do kind of want to hear about that a little bit.
Yeah, I got a good buddy, Mike Witt, has been with Disney forever, and he was on the team getting that whole experience set up. So when they were doing their soft opening, they had a week where the employees could bring their families, and they had to sign up, but to do the whole experience. So he brought Shane and I. Shane Bonifay is a Star Wars, an avid
aficionado.
Star Wars, definitely aficionado. But so we got to go through the entire experience, and I do have to say, if you are a Star Wars fan, you eat, breathe, and sleep Star Wars.
Sleep.
I mean, you don't leave. It's not like you go to this resort and like you get over it and you go by the pool. There's no pool. You're in Star Wars land. And
you dress up, I'm guessing.
Well, we did not know this, but yes, people dress up.
You're but not supposed to, but like most people do.
It's like next level, like a LARPing experience. Live action role play.
Oh yeah.
It's serious, but the attention to detail, and the cool thing is, so you get this app on your phone, and everyone's experience is different based on the decisions you make. So you're getting like hit up by the dark side, the rebellion, and then the First Order is constant, and they're trying to get you to do missions for either side. So how you react to, the missions that you jump on basically determines how your entire experience is.
That's sick. And you can go to the cantina?
Oh yeah.
Okay, and you can get they got alcohol there, beers and whatnot. That's so cool.
Oh yeah, besides not being able to leave Star Wars world for that entire time, there are bars.
Okay, more than the cantina.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. So you're like on a ship the whole time.
It's like a hotel basically, but it's a ship.
Yeah.
Okay, and just the people in the experience are staying there.
Exactly.
And what do you think that costs? Like just for 2 people to go do it for?
I think for 4 people for the entire experience is like 2.5 days. I think it's $5,000
per person or for the squad.
I think for the squad.
Okay.
And it's all food. All food is a part of it. It's like there's like a galley, like a ship's galley, where there's just like a buffet style, like all day long. And then
so it's like all inclusive.
Yeah, and then they have like a full dinner with like, like shows going on, like you're literally on a cruise, like a Star Wars cruise ship is like the idea.
That's sick.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I guess $5,000 divided by 4 people, 2.5 nights. Like it's still expensive, but it sounds like it's pretty cool, worth it.
It's worth it if you love Star Wars.
If you're a Star Wars nut,
yeah.
Okay. I guess we can kind of pivot a little bit to wakeboarding. I do want to jump into just like where you're from and how you got into water sports. Mm-hmm. Not even wakeboarding, just like water sports in general.
Yeah, so I grew up in Twin Lakes, Wisconsin, which is right in between Chicago and Milwaukee, next to Lake Geneva. There's a show ski team in the town I grew up in called the Aquanuts, and grew up watching them, and when I was 10 years old, joined that. But besides that, like my family was just a boating family. Grew up, we had a 16-foot Glasstron growing up. Learned how to ski, learned how to trick ski. Then, joined the Aquanuts and kind of just went down the water ski, rabbit hole.
So how old were you when you started water skiing?
I was 6 when I first learned how to just straight ski.
And wakeboarding probably wasn't really a thing back then?
Wakeboarding wasn't a thing yet. Like when I was 10, when I joined the Aquanuts, I started trick skiing and started, slalom tricking. And, I never was really like a 3-event trick skier. I was more like wakeboarding on a trick ski before wakeboarding was really a thing, just because that was just what was fun. I hated like toe turns and stuff like that. My dad, one of the things to get this is kind of funny about trick skiing. So when my second wakeboard was the limited edition blue and gray Flight 69.
Sick.
And to get that, my dad was like, basically, I forget exactly what it was, but I had to learn like this certain like toe turn on a trick, because my dad was hyped on trick, like loved trick skiing.
What's a toe turn? I'm not gonna lie. I don't know
Where you put your foot in the rope?
Oh yeah, that stuff's no.
Oh, it's the worst. It's the worst. But
well, you had to learn that to get the deck.
Yeah, I could do. I forget what it was, but yeah, I had to do it. Some sort of toe pass that my dad was hyped on to, and then I was like signed off to get a twin tip.
Sick. So you're still riding behind that Glasstron, I'm guessing, when you get that wakeboard?
No, actually, that was like my family's boat, like that my mom had from the time she was like 16. So then we got a Sea Swirl, which was like an off-brand, like I think the company that made it was OMC.
Never heard of them.
They're a Midwest company.
Okay.
I think they were actually out of Milwaukee. And it was kind of like, do you remember the old Mastercraft, the Mare Star?
Yeah. So it was like a V-drive or a...
It was just an inboard.
Just an inboard, I guess, not V-drive.
But it was like, it kind of looked like a Mare Star.
Okay. So it threw a decent wake, though.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're riding behind that thing. Do you guys live on the lake then?
We lived right down the road from the lake, and we like basically just like rented a slip at a dock at a restaurant.
So you're getting a lot of time on the water though in the summer.
We lived on the water. Yeah.
Sick. Okay, so when do you get that wakeboard? What age would you say that is?
So let's see. What age was I at when I got my first wakeboard? Was a Hyperlight XP, which is directional with the the strap bindings and all that. I'm gonna have to say I was probably, let's see, summer in between, I think 8th grade and high school. So let's see, that would be 94.
Okay. So that's when you like started wakeboarding, basically. Is that zone?
Yeah.
And how quickly afterwards did you start taking it pretty seriously?
Instantly.
Okay.
Like, so like I was saying, like I trick skied and like was basically wakeboarding on a trick ski. So I was just like waiting for this to come along, not knowing.
You didn't know what was next, but you were ready for it.
Yeah, like, so basically like I was trick skiing, wakeboarding on a trick ski, right? And then I saw the movie Spray and completely changed my life.
Yeah.
Like, I remember like going, and this, okay, that verifies the year for sure, because my freshman year of high school, I played soccer. Don't know why, but I played soccer. And all I remember is, I think about this all the time, actually. I remember being at soccer practice and waiting, like literally counting down the seconds till soccer practice was over so I could go home and watch Spray.
So you just watch it over and over.
Dude, just wore this VH out, like, and like, we had a trampoline, and I like was like all winter long learning these tricks that these guys were doing on the trampoline, right? And then like when summer came along, like it just like happened, like, you know what I mean? Like I already knew how to do the tricks in my head.
You just need to get on the water and do them.
Exactly, and like, yeah, that's like just how in love I felt. Like I was just like, this is it. Like I can't even imagine doing anything else.
Wow. Okay, so it's pretty instant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously you were into water sports before that, so that helps a lot. Where did you get spray? Like, where did you get that VHS tape?
Let's see.
A Marina or?
Yeah, I think it was Munson. At that before it was Munson Ski, it was called Munson Marine.
Okay.
And it's a shop that I actually worked at from the time I was probably 14 to 17, 18, right before I moved to Florida.
Okay. So, yeah, we can kind of jump into that. But when you were in Wisconsin, so it's probably, 3 summers there that you're wakeboarding before you moved down to Orlando? 3 summers? 2 summers?
I moved down in September of 99. So, yeah, I was wakeboarding up there from 94 to 99.
Okay, so 5 years-ish. Did you get any sponsors when you were up there?
Yeah, yep. I started riding for Munson Ski, and I worked there and rode for them. But then I got sponsored from the local rep. He's this Australian cat named Lester Priday that did Liquid Force, Reef, and Dragon. So I got sponsored from him as just like a local rider for all 3 of those companies.
So is there any money involved there? Or is it just free stuff?
No, that's just flow and just being able to go to
events and stuff.
Events and hang out and say you're sponsored.
Yeah, that's the coolest thing as a kid that age, just being like, I'm a sponsored wakeboarder for sure. So you're kind of getting hooked up by those companies when you're in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So you're taking wakeboarding seriously. You're competing, I'm guessing, then too.
Yeah, just like the local contests. Okay. And then so I rode for them, but then back in the day in Chicago, there was a surf expo in Chicago that was called MTech, and it was like an off-brand of actual surf expo. And it was actually a big show back in those days, like a really big show. Like it's what Surf Expo has become and like people's perceived notion of what it is now is it's kind of sad because it was such an exciting thing and there was so much energy. And to be a kid to go to where I'm going with that is I went to MTech and there was this company from Washington called Sage Wakeboards. Colin Wright originally rode for them, and I brought my little VH demo tape there and played it for them, and they sponsored me, like legit sponsorship, like not getting paid or whatever, but it was like.
Did you sign something like? A
yeah,
contract?
it was like a real sponsorship. So I rode for them for about a year and a half maybe.
Okay.
Yep.
No money, but was there like a travel budget, or were they like flying you anywhere to do any contests or anything?
No, because I was basically in high school, and I think they maybe like ran like one ad that I was in or something like that. You know what I mean? So it was like something. It was more than just like a rep hookup. You know what I mean? Like it was.
There was a relationship you had.
It
with
was
them.
actually riding like factory style.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess did that end while you were still in Wisconsin? Like kind of start and end when you were still there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why did that end?
Because I think they ended.
Yeah.
They were just like a small company, just like trying to do their thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think they pretty much just kind of called it quits. And then at that point, I started riding for a full tilt.
Okay. How did that opportunity kind of come about?
Full tilt was I was riding junior contests, and they approached me. Yeah, by that point I was doing there was a really big contest in the Midwest called the Cincinnati Open, which was at this quarry, and it was really, really cool. And I met that's where I met like Ryan Wolf. We became friends there, like probably like 96, like for the first time. Like a bunch of the guys, like in that day it was all those junior men's, like all those kids. And I already knew Shane and Parks because, to cut back, the show ski team that was in my hometown, Betty Bonifay would come and teach all the girls how to swivel ski. So a couple years she would bring Parks and Shane up. So I think I met Parks and Shane for the first time probably in 96.
Okay.
And then we just became friends because I was already into wakeboarding and Parks was just blowing up at that time. And when we first started out, I was actually, became better friends with Shane because, we were both nerds, and we just kind of like liked the same stuff, and Parks was like, a big deal. And so like me and Shane built our relationship off of making fun of Parks.
Well, he's cashing fat checks to the bank, I'm sure, at that point. So I guess kind of moving to Florida, were there any other sponsors in Wisconsin that were like kind of helping you out, or was it just those few? And then
so when I moved to Florida, I was riding for Full Tilt, and I was riding, I think for sure Dragon. Who else was it? I think
just Full Tilt and Dragon.
Full Tilt, Dragon, possibly Reef. I can't remember exactly when I really signed. I think I was still riding kind of like for the rep for Reef at that time period. But I did end up really signing with Reef a year or two later.
Okay, so did you sign with Full Tilt though?
Yeah, I was fully signed with Full Tilt, yeah.
And what was that like contract looking like?
Well, I signed with Full Tilt my senior year in high school, and it was a 3-year contract. I think it was like starting out like maybe like $750 a month, and by the 3rd year was like $2,000 a month.
Jeez.
And I was in high school, and they approached me, it was cool, that sealed the deal to my parents, this is a thing.
Yeah, this is a career, we don't have to worry about, him not going to college or whatever.
Yeah, this is a thing. I remember my dad couldn't believe, my mom went with me to a nationals. I believe it was in Denver. What year would that have been? 97, 98, somewhere in there.
So just before when did you move down to Florida? 99?
99, yeah.
Okay, so just before you were moving down there.
Yeah, a year before I moved down. And went out to dinner, and they gave me this contract, and I just remember, my parents just wow, this is real.
So was there any negotiating there, or was it just you couldn't even believe that they were going to pay you this much
money?
No,
there was no negotiating. I was like, yes.
yes, please. Sick. Okay, so then I guess kind of jumping into moving down to Orlando, obviously now you're making a good amount of money from wakeboarding, so it's not really you're not taking a huge risk moving to Orlando. You kind of already have support.
Right.
So who do you live with down there? Where are you riding down here, I guess, now?
Yeah. So when I first moved to Florida, it was the year basically following my first year on Pro Tour. My first year on Pro Tour was the summer of '99, right out of graduated high school and then straight on to tour. So, I met everybody on tour, and Dean Lavelle lived in the same town as Parks and Shane. So regardless, I was gonna move down with Parks and Shane because I'd been coming down and hanging with them and riding all through me riding junior men's. I was coming down and staying with Parks and Shane, and getting ready for contests, and so I already knew the area and was. Felt good there. So I moved in with Dean Lavelle, and I lived there for about a year and a half, and it was outside of Winter Haven, Lake Alfred, so it was middle of the country, in the middle of nowhere, and being from the Midwest, moving to the country in Florida is definitely a little bit of a
Florida's way different than the Midwest.
A little bit of a change, you know what I mean? It's a little bit of a little culture shock.
Yeah.
But it was good, man. I learned definitely how to, just be on your own,
Right? Yeah, because you're what, 18, 19?
Yeah, 18.
So that's a big step, kind of moving out on your own to a different state, just chasing the wakeboard thing. What boat are you guys riding on or riding behind then?
So Dean had a Aeronautique. Parks had the first X-Star right there. That was the year the actual X-Star came out, and then after that first year on the Pro Tour, then I got sponsored by Taiga.
So that was what, 2000 then, or 9?
No, that was still 99.
It was 99. Okay. Thought I had it. You signed in 2000.
Oh no, you're right. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Did a little bit of homework.
I like that.
So you signed in 2000 with Taiga.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that would like. They give you a boat and money, or like how does that work?
Yep, boat and money. Boat and money. Yeah, I think I can't remember exactly what they. I think it was around $1,000 or something like that.
Okay, so and that's stacking on top of obviously the other deals you have going on.
Something like that. But yeah, like that whole deal came about because when I was on tour riding for Full Tilt, Kobe Mikasage. I mean, to go back to riding for Full Tilt, like beyond the contract, that was going on to a team of legends: Thomas Harrell, Kobe Mikasage, Mike Weddington, Andrea Gayton. I mean, like those were like my video heroes.
Guys have been looking up to.
Yeah. I mean, Kobe, Weddington, and Thomas. Like Thomas, that was like Thomas is like leaving wakeboarding, like and going straight wake skating at that time. So like I only really was like on the team with Thomas for like a second, and then he was kind of done wakeboarding. But so being able to hang with Kobe was a very life-changing deal for me because at that time, Kobe Mikasage and Chris Bischoff had a bus tour, and they were going from tour to tour, doing the what they called the Fantastic Voyage, and it was sponsored by Taiga. They'd pull a boat, they'd go to all the Taiga dealers on the way to tours, and do demos and hang out, and so I jumped on board with those guys and started doing, the Fantastic Voyage, and was just on an RV going
just in the mix
across the country, and that to me like changed my whole life from just seeing, like just open, like I'm 18, 19 years old, and like the whole world is just in front of me. I'm on the road with my heroes, and it just like was like this light bulb that was just like
opens your eyes to the whole industry.
Just a whole new world of what could go on. And so from that's how I got sponsored by Taiga, was going on the road with these
building
guys.
That relationship kind of along the way.
Exactly. But yeah, man, I'll tell you what, going on the road like that, I mean, seeing the country from an RV and seeing the lakes and being, going to every different kind of lake and different scene from West Coast to East Coast to Midwest. I mean, that was really cool because you're just seeing the people that you're hanging with, the people that are honestly paying your salaries, the people that are buying wakeboards, that are buying boats, that are really in it.
Yeah.
And to like, there's people that I still keep in contact with that I met on those tours.
Really?
To this day. And I feel like that's kind of cool. I feel like that's something like that, more than wakeboarding, just,
on a human level.
Yeah, just life. Like that's cool. Like making those types of relationships and sustaining them when a relationship doesn't have to do with anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just nothing more than like getting along with each other and having a good time.
Exactly.
Yeah, no business deals or anything going on there.
Exactly.
Sick. So you kind of go through that tour, get linked up with Taiga. Before we move past that, I do want to talk about just you walk me through like the Pointless crew, how it got started, everything about that, like from the start of when you were in it or whatever.
Yeah. Pointless crew. The Pointless crew is that was a.
You called the Pointless Posse?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yep. Pointless Posse.
Don't want to sound.
Nah, Pointless crew, Pointless Posse. But yeah, we were referred to as the Pointless Posse. So the Pointless Posse was Shane Parks, Chad Sharp, Brian Grubb, Sean Watson, Nick Weinecker, and myself, and Francois Roy, who is a French rider. And he used to come and stay at Shane's house he basically lived at Shane's house for a handful of years. But, yeah, we were just a bunch of
knuckleheads.
Just delinquents. that wakeboarded. And I mean, we were like a crew that was looking at wakeboarding from, like Thomas Harrell's perspective was like, let's take wakeboarding as far away from water skiing as possible. And we weren't necessarily fully in that mindset because a lot of us came from water skiing and came from boating. We were more or less all skateboarders, snowboarders, and it was the era of X Games was hot. You know what I mean? Like extreme sports was hot. Like anything extreme.
Yeah.
Mountain Dew.
Very extreme.
So extreme. But we were basically looking at it as how do we make wakeboarding to be as, to replicate and simulate what, make it look like, make it feel like snowboarding and skateboarding. And we, started really building rails. And I mean, our rails just look like trash heaps. I mean, if you watch Incomplete, like it's just junk piled on junk.
Yeah, I do want to talk about that in a little bit.
We just didn't care. We were just like, but we also like, we're documenting everything too. Like, so what happened was there was a contest series called the Vans Triple Crown. It went through there was skateboarding, snowboarding, wakeboarding. Vans sponsored it. There was one in Pensacola, Florida, I believe in 2000. I think it was 2000.
Okay.
And Shane won it, and I think I got second. And with that money that Shane won, he bought a Panasonic. Oh, what is it? He's got it tattooed on his shoulder. I forget. I forget what it's called.
It wasn't a VX1000, was it?
Might have been.
It might have been.
Yeah.
Does he still have it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I think it's the VX1000.
Yeah.
But anyways, how much was that check for?
A lot.
Yeah. That was not X Games. That was the Vans, right?
Yeah.
Those must have been pretty good.
I think second place, I think I got like, I don't know, maybe like $2,500 or something like that. But like it was over 5 for those. I think it was maybe like 8.
Yeah.
I think.
'Cause, I mean, a camera setup back then has got to be.
Well, he got a camera and a computer.
Oh, okay.
And that basically really, because Shane and I were, for a long time, we were talking about doing a video and like this crew and revolutionizing wakeboarding and, living it. We didn't give a shit. Like we were just being.
Yeah.
There was no, like in those days you were sponsored. Like all you had to do is make sure you showed up to the photo shoots, make sure you went to the contest, because contests were a big deal. You had to do good in contests. But there was no like social media. There was no like day-to-day. You know what I mean? Like we could do whatever we wanted. And all we wanted to do is really ride and cause trouble.
Party a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. We definitely did a little bit of partying. But we were just engulfed in it. You know what I mean? Like everything we did was, it was like, like the realest time I can remember of like just really being wakeboarding. Not like trying to be a wakeboarder, not like looking at it like this is what I have to do. Just being wakeboarding.
Just kind of no worries about the future, the past, or anything. You're just in the moment wakeboarding.
Every day. And with this whole group of dudes, everyone was in the same mindset, and everyone pushed each other, and that's when Parks was just inventing tricks left and right.
Yeah.
And like the rail hits that Parks was doing, virtually there'd be days where Parks would do 10 never been done before hits in a row, like because it just wasn't done. People weren't building rails like with actual, there was some flat bars back in those days and whatever, but like we were building gaps and like
Kinks
transitional stuff, kinks, and like it was really, apart from being able, riding the stuff and doing it, but to watch all that go down like on a daily basis, like when I look back on it, I was like, man, that was such a special time in wakeboarding to be a part of that, because it was all just so new. It wasn't replicating anything. It was happening all in real time. And it was insane. It was insane.
Feels like it was happening very fast too.
It was happening very fast.
The progression was very quick.
Yeah.
So you did, in a previous interview, you kind of mentioned there was quite a few different stories, crazy stories with the Pointless guys. I've got a list of topics, but you didn't expand upon them. So I would definitely like to hear you expand on a couple.
Yeah, for sure.
The first one was a crazy Masters story. So I don't know if there's anything that jumps out when I say that.
I mean, honestly, there's so many.
Let's hear one. You got any?
Yeah, I got a couple.
All right, let him rip.
Well, obviously, if you've ever been to a Masters, one of the main things you have to do is jump off the pavilion at night. I mean, this is just, scratching the surface of Masters.
That's what everybody's got to do.
Yeah, it's a rite of passage.
Yeah, okay.
It's a rite of passage. But, like, the fun thing is, like, we would always get a cabin, and it would be the Pointless cabin, and it would just be all us. And, like, there was the hotel, the main hotel at Callaway, and then the cabins. And the cabins, you could go through the woods and make it down to the water. And it's also a golf course. So we would always, when we were leaving the site, we would steal a couple golf cart keys. So then we'd come back at night, take the golf carts, and then we basically would just rally golf carts all night long, everywhere. And, like, literally purposely try to get chased by security.
It's more fun.
Oh, it's way more fun. I mean, and we would just, rally and jump the pavilion. I remember a couple of years jumping the pavilion and then security coming down and us, like, all underneath the dock, like, just waiting it out. And then they'd roll. We'd hop on the carts and just roll back, and then they'd be on us, and then we'd stash the carts in the woods. But yeah, then I mean, there's so many stories. I mean, we did the Pointless crew. I would say destroyed Masters for about a decade.
In a good way and a bad way.
In a good way and a bad way. In a good way and a bad way.
Was there any flack? I mean, you're getting from any event organizers, all that shit.
Here's like where we were. Like, this is a good understanding of where we were at. So one year, Parks wins the contest. He's coming in, and the water ski jump off limits. Like,
I think this is on video, but go on.
Like, you're meeting before wakeboarding. No water ski jump. Do not hit the water ski jump. Parks sticks his double half cab, whipping in, freaking whips in, and hits the ski jump, and just straight up just ejects, like, just straight up Supermans and dives in, and, like, the crowd goes insane. He basically comes in, security's waiting for him, and at the time Nautique guy, what was his name? One of the Maloons. Well, anyways, doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. Anyways, he walks up with security, and Parks is escorted off the premises by security for hitting the ski jump. So, like, literally, like, that's how at that time, like, it's changed now, but, like, this was, like, such a this is probably like 2000 maybe, 2001, 2003. So early 2000s. And that's basically how, at that time point, in the water ski world of, like, the Masters being, like, such a highly regarded just entity of the sport, like, that's how serious it was taken. And we were just there having fun. And like, the fact that Parks was, like, escorted off the premise for hitting a ski jump, like, just kind of shows you, like, what the rest of the industry actually thought about wakeboarding. Like in no point did any of these people understand how seriously Parks and the rest of us were, like, changing the game for the boating industry, for every aspect of the industry, because they're just kind of, that world of water skiing, I feel like it's changed. Like we were talking before this even started about Joe Polans and kids like that. Such an amazing personality and I think doing amazing things for skiing because it's just changing that. I feel like the mentality has changed for that. I feel like that mentality of water skiing really hurt water skiing for a long time, and I feel like it's come out of that. But that's what we were breaking away from.
Yeah, not taking yourself too seriously, and like I feel like snowboarding in general is always like a rebellion.
Yeah.
Like no matter what boarding it is, if it's snowboarding, skateboarding, wakeboarding, like they each have their own rebellion, and it sounds like you guys were kind of rebelling against maybe not the industry, but like what people thought of water sports and what water sports was.
Totally. For sure, especially at that time period. And that's like I said, like the whole extreme thing was becoming a thing. And then, X Games started, and I mean, we were all going to, from 99 to 2005, I went to every single X Games there was through that time period. And I mean, that alone was a really big impact on the sport.
Yeah, kind of walk me through those X Games events and like what the environment was like in the event they put on. Like, because it's kind of second to none compared to a lot of other contests.
Yeah, I mean, you had all the, top skate guys. There was street, there was half pipe. I mean, we all saw Tony Hawk land the first 900.
You were there?
Yeah, we were all there.
Sick.
I mean, we saw Travis Pastrana when he jumped the bike into the San Francisco Bay. Did you see that? Like it was right next, like the motocross setup was right on like one of the piers, like on the bay, and he booted out of the whole course into the San Francisco Bay. Like it was crazy. Like I remember like we were at the hotel and we get in the elevator and like we're all young and for some reason there's a Denny's in this hotel that didn't card anybody, and we were just sending. And I was like probably 18, 19, and all of us were. And I just remember like being buzzed up and getting in the elevator and like look around and look up, and we were standing like Tony Hawk's like standing right behind us in the elevator, and we're just like, I just remember like that being like something that's just like, wow, like this is a big deal.
This is my life now.
Well, yeah, this is a big deal. Like this is a big deal, and like, like obviously like, I know I'm jumping around a lot right now, but.
It's good. It's good. I like it.
That today, like they did those video X Game parts and stuff like that.
Real Wake.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm glad that those kids. What makes me sad to watch the talent of Tyler's, Mossy's, Gunther's, and for these kids not to be able to get to experience like what we experienced. It really bums me out because like that. As a personal thing, like solidifies to yourself. You know what I mean? Like to be involved in something like that is like, I feel like it's like, I just wish that that experience still existed for today's rider, because it was something that it was bigger than wakeboarding. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't feel like there's that many opportunities for these kids these days to feel bigger than wakeboarding.
Definitely.
And that's what the X Games did for wakeboarding. It took it to a higher echelon of above our industry. It wasn't controlled by boat companies. It wasn't controlled by brands. It wasn't controlled. It was controlled by extreme sports. And in the 90s, people loved that shit.
They ate it up.
And the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was cool. And we got to, go to, in LA, go to the Sunset Strip and go to fancy parties and go to places, all VIP, paid for shit, like that you just normally wouldn't be able to do. And this is all off the water experiences that, really changed my life and opened my eyes to the world. And most of it really didn't have to do with wakeboarding. It just had to do with the experience and living it and living life and, putting yourself in situations that you would never, ever be able to be in. I mean, Chad Sharp, this is an insane. Chad Sharp is at an X game party, and what is her name? Blonde chick, famous, married a super old guy, died. She had a reality show.
Oh, who's the famous old guy or the old guy?
No, the old guy. He
wasn't famous.
He died. He wasn't famous. You know who I'm talking about?
Is she an actress or anything?
Yeah, she was an actress. She had a reality show.
Paris Hilton?
Nope. I can't remember. Oh man, it would really. I'm blowing the story right now because I can't remember
who is
who
it?
She OD'd. She had like one of the first reality shows. She was a Playboy model.
She didn't marry Hugh Hefner?
No.
Oh. That's the only person I could think of.
No, she just married an old guy that was super rich, and then he died.
Oh, and she got all her money?
Yeah.
Or his money?
Oh, what is her name? Anyways.
I'll put it right underneath. When
Yeah. We'll research. Well, anyways, so we're at an X game party, and Chad's there with his girlfriend. The famous chick sees Chad, his girlfriend, likes Chad's girlfriend, and says, "Hey, you want to come and party with us?" And Chad and his girlfriend get in her limo and cruise and just partied with her all night long and cruised around and
just probably some mega multimillionaire. Just
what is her? You put it in the.
I'll put it right underneath you, right there.
Well, anyway, that's a ridiculous story, but life experiences like that is like the whole point of what my rambling is that wakeboarding let us have those experiences. And I wish that those opportunities were available for the kids these days.
What do you think it would take to have something like that come about again, where those opportunities would start to get presented? It's kind of a can of worms there, but I feel like you might have some insight on that.
You know what damn the man. The man screws everything up. As soon as X Games started getting rally car racing, Suzuki's big industry sponsors, it ruined X Games. Because then they stopped, there's BMX. I mean, there's even rollerblading. I mean, watching some kids twirl around on rollerblades on a half pipe was kind of fun to watch in real life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But those types of things, wakeboarding, rollerbladings, all that type of stuff, when these big industry sponsors started taking over the X Games for rally car racings and big motorsports and all these bigger industries that were buying the X Games, then the whole point of the X Games was actually lost. And that happens to everything. I mean, it's sad to say. It's awesome. Everything is awesome in the beginning. Then it needs money to develop. And then when the man realizes that there's a market there,
there's a profit that can be made,
then it gets ruined.
Yeah. So you were right in that perfect slot.
The perfect slot. And I feel so thankful that me and, really the Pointless crew, we benefited more than anyone through this time period because we were just right time, right place, right scene, and doing the right thing. And we're just really lucky to be a part of that era.
Yeah. Just even from a couple of stories there, I knew it was wild back then. But, so you guys said you guys rode and partied hard here in Orlando. What does that party scene look like, in the late 90s, early 2000s with all the Pointless crew?
Just downtown Orlando. We basically owned it.
Yeah.
I wasn't as invested in the scene as some of the guys. Like, I was there, but I was just
along for the ride.
Just kind of there.
Yeah.
I was in a lot of La La Land in those days. I was finding myself everywhere.
What do you mean by that? You take some ayahuasca back then?
Similar things. but it was just downtown. Yeah, you could go into any bar and every bouncer, every bartender,
they all knew you guys.
Yeah. We were everywhere. And there was enough of us that, and it wasn't just us. It wasn't just us. It was the Australian crew. It was everyone that worked at Wakeboard Magazine. It was the industry was like the industry wasn't just like, oh well, let's get on the Zoom call and we'll hatch things out and then we'll circle back on that. We were together, like it was happening all at one time. You know what I mean? Like everything was like people from the industry when they came into town. You can be sure as hell you're going to see them at the bar that night downtown.
Yeah,
and it was that downtown Orlando is where wakeboarding business went down. It was over beers. It
wasn't stuffy business meetings.
It was sushi and beers, and that's every Billabong dinner, every, like, you know, at that point in time, like a bunch of us all rode for Billabongs, the Sean Dishmans, the Chris Bischoffs, the Kevin Michaels, Kevco. I mean, all the photographers, Joey Maddox, Josh Letchworth, Bear, everyone was just existing. It was just happening.
Here. Yeah.
Yes.
It was all here.
Yeah, I mean, you watched that Alliance thing last year that they did about, like, the scene of Orlando or whatever. Like, that scratched the surface.
But it was more than that.
Yeah.
Okay. I do want to talk about Incomplete. So you kind of mentioned the rails you guys were building and hitting back then. It was a lot of PVC. None of the rails were skirted, which for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's like the supports of the rails are just sticking out. So there's no wood on the side to prevent your legs from, or arms or neck or head from going underneath. Were you guys really thinking about like the setups you were building, or were you kind of saying you're just throwing shit together, making it work, and then?
Well, most of the stuff that we were building was stuff we stole. So we didn't keep tools. I mean, I think Danny Harf had a set of tools that he actually, Danny or Grub. Grub was probably the most he kept his stuff together.
Okay.
Grubby was always precision. He drove a Prelude.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
He drove a Prelude with a huge Volcom stone sticker on it.
Sick.
Loved it. I miss that Prelude. It's cool. But I was thinking about the Prelude. Where was I at?
This must have been a pretty cool Prelude. Yeah, just the rails you guys were building and hitting back then. I mean,
yeah.
Any big slams? Anyone get broke off? Like, obviously, yes, but any that come to mind?
Oh yeah. Well, there was a lot of clipping. Like, we would put picnic tables together and like just a lot of
imperfect seams,
clipping edges. And one time Danny hit this up. It was an up, like a PVC, a 3-pipe wide up to about like maybe a 15. And I don't know what our problem was with like gaps. Like, we needed to nowadays people that's the thing. Today's kids don't even give a shit how big an alley is. I mean, everything has ups. It's all cable parks. I mean, maybe in winching, but like, if you were ollieing onto something lower than waist high,
didn't count.
Dude, you're not doing it. It's just not. It's not a thing, right? So we had super big ollies for everything, and every gap there's no possible way it could be under 12 feet. Like, it had to be. So Danny hits this 3-pipe up to probably about 15, maybe close to 20-foot gap to this. I believe it was a flat. Obviously, no skirting, no nothing like that. He hits it dry.
Of course.
Gets caught up, fully takes the front beam, just tacos around it, just wraps
like running into it,
straight into it, full speed. And those days, like, I'm not going to sit here and be the kids these days kind of guy, you know what I mean? But riding, hitting rails on a cable, a System 2, winching's different. Winching is its own entity for sure. But all these rails we're hitting is behind a ski boat. like we always used Parks's mom's. She had like a Mastercraft, like a 190 with a tower on it, and we liked that better than a ski because you could put the rope high on the tower, and you got a little, you know, you weren't just
getting yanked into the water.
The low pole. Like all the stuff at the projects back in the day was always behind a ski with a low pole.
Yeah.
I mean, that alone, learning how to hit rails on a ski like that, I feel like that should come back because that's its own, like lining up rails behind a boat or behind a ski is totally different than hitting them, you know, on a system or on a cable. But anyways, Danny was skiing or riding behind a ski boat. So he was probably, I'd say the boat was probably going 21. And to hit a rail like that with a gap, you're taking a solid edge into it.
Yeah, you're cutting out to it.
Yeah, so he wrapped around that thing moving. And that was one of the first ones where he got hurt and we had to go straight to the hospital, and we were like, so I guess there is some consequences to this.
Yeah, more than just a broken bone or whatever. I mean, what ended up happening? Do you remember?
I think he ruptured something.
Oof. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that kind of slow any of you guys down, or was it like kind of a reality check? Or, I mean, from the video, it seems like you guys kept pushing those fucked up rails for a while.
I think that hit is actually in Shane put out like just a collection of random shit after Incomplete. It was called Mixtape. I think that hit of Danny's is in Mixtape. I could be wrong.
Okay, if it's in there and if it's on the internet, I'll try and put that in here so we can.
But yeah, it was gnarly. But that's one that I like specifically remember. But after that, to go with what you're saying, did that check us? All that really did for checking us was make sure we wet down the rails.
I was about
first.
to say, you're probably just saying, let's get these Johns wet first before we start sliding across 20-foot gaps. In Incomplete, you did have a line. I don't remember if you remember doing this or not, but it was heel front 7, toe front 7, heel back 5. You remember that? Was that first try? How many tries did that take, that line?
Okay. I did a mute mob off a double up in that section also.
Yeah.
That was all one set.
So that 3-trick line was one go. Or not one go, but it was all in this one.
That 3-trick line was in one go, and that double up was in the same set. And I remember that was on Lake Willis at Danny Harf's parents' house, and there was some magic sessions that went down there that, like, even thinking back on it, like, I'm pretty sure that was just a first go. Yeah. There's like moments back in those days, and I'm sure the kids these days, I've seen Mossy and Tai Tai and those guys have sessions like that. But, you know, there was those sessions where everyone was vibing so hard that you couldn't fall.
The energy was just feeding off each other.
You just couldn't fall because everyone was so hyped on each other that it just made you go out there, and there's just this energy that carried you. You know what I mean? Like, falling, it wasn't like you were doing something thinking, oh, I got to make this. It was just
have fun.
Just happening.
Yeah.
It was just happening.
Do you think part of the reason why you guys were also hyped on each other was it was less of a competitive, like, attitude to get paid to do it? You guys were all getting taken care of super well.
See, I'm actually glad you touched on that. Because all of us through the Pointless era, through that process of Pointless blowing up, we all just like kind of had some board sponsors at that time and whatever. But by the end of the heart of the Pointless era, we were all sponsored up.
Yeah.
We were making really good money, sponsored up. And that kind of destroyed Pointless in the fact that, not from us, you know, not wanting to hang out and do what we did, but all of a sudden we had obligations. Yeah. Before, we were just doing us 24/7. I mean, we were always together. We did everything together. We traveled together. We rode together. We partied together. we were filming, we were documenting it all, and just living. Then all of a sudden, like I said earlier, the man comes in. Yeah, it's a lot easier to pay your bills, but then all of a sudden, the essence of what we were creating slightly disappears, because then you're obligated to be obligated.
Yeah, you're working for somebody else or for a lot of different people, and every single one of you guys is all working for all these other different people.
Yeah,
to kind of to make them money.
Yeah.
So you kind of mentioned that was like the heart of Pointless kind of ended with all that. I know you signed with Taiga in 2000, kind of talked about that a little bit, but 2001 is when you won X Games bronze. So kind of walk me through that, I guess, that whole competition and winning bronze there.
Well, like I was talking about that session over on Lake Willis, we were heavily riding over at Danny's house on Lake Willis. And this is like Danny's still in high school, and like Shane Parks and I would ride up every day. Shane's a PT Cruiser. Yeah, Shane drove a PT Cruiser.
I think that was in I think that might have been in Pointless, maybe.
Yeah.
Or, not in Pointless, Incomplete, but
it was in something.
I've seen it.
But we just went. So we would go to contests, our whole crew, and we'd go down, and we were getting cocky because it was fun. And we would just be down on the dock just chattering to people, just saying, talking shop. But we would always just tell everybody, just wait, we're getting ready to put on a demo. Like in the contest. Like it wasn't a contest. We're just going to go out there and put on a demo for everyone.
Yeah.
Just to see how it's done. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the way we went to that X Games. I remember like the whole Pointless crew just went, and there wasn't Danny won that one. I got bronze. Darren Shapiro got second. But if you look down the rest of those rankings, it's all the Pointless guys. And it's crazy like how mental competition is, like, because in those days we didn't care. We cared about how we did our stuff, but we didn't care about everything. So it made it so that when we were out there, we were riding like we were riding at home all the time. You know what I mean? So like, I remember that X Games, just crazy energy. Like Danny killed it, and I went out and I actually did a trick off the double up that I guess was a variation of a mob, but I came up and kind of went like overhead mob, like instead of like
Olay kind of
like come up, like grab mute and then Olay to the handle pass instead of like fully like,
underneath and then
exactly. So like, yeah, I do remember that, like sticking that double up, and people made a big deal about it and said it's an NBD before, but I don't think it's really an NBD. I think it was just more like a variation.
Yeah.
Like back in those days, I feel like every little thing someone needed to name. Like Shane loved naming some tricks. Dum Dum, Tootsie Roll. Well, I named the first one after Candy, so I figured I'd name the second one after Candy. He said that. That was an interview.
He did?
Oh, that's
I gotta find that.
That's verbatim from an ESP interview from, I think.
Is that what he sounded like too?
Oh yeah.
I named the first.
Serious. Oh man, yeah, good stuff.
Oh man, what's that prize purse for bronze? Probably pretty good.
First was 20.
20K for gold. Holy shit.
First was 20. I believe second was like 8 to 12, and I think I ended up with somewhere around 5 or 6.
Okay.
Somewhere in there.
That's good.
Yeah. Oh,
You still got the medal somewhere?
I do.
All right. Maybe we'll grab that in a little bit.
Yeah, I'll show
Check
it to
that
you.
out.
I'll show it to you.
Sick. Okay, so then following the 2001 season up, 2002 was probably, would you say it's your best season, like competitive-wise? Obviously, winning Pro Tour.
Yeah.
So what was it like going into that season? I mean, you kind of are alluding to the fact that you're not super competitive. You're kind of going to the contest, having fun, riding with the boys.
Yeah.
But you go into that you go into the final stop, and you already had won, right? Or maybe you had to take one run, and it was
That's 2002.
2002.
2002, I won the overall tour, and then I won Worlds. And yeah, I went into the last contest. Basically, I think it was if Darren Shapiro didn't do good in like even his semi run, like where he was placed, like I already won the tour.
Yeah.
So like going into I was in finals. Going into finals, I knew I already won the overall tour. It was just winning that contest, and I went out and won that contest. But yeah, you know that's just such a it's hard to explain like the mindset like that we were all in. Like it's almost like for me to do something good, I almost have to not care.
It looks like you didn't give a shit. I mean, I watched the broadcast back, and it really looks like you couldn't care less.
I mean, it's just like one of those things, like anything I do, like if I like overly, like my mind gets in, like I got too much shit going on in my mind. If I turn my mind on to do something,
Yeah, you'll think yourself in circles.
I have to do everything with my mind turned off.
So that was kind of your mentality going into it. It was, I mean, before that last stop, where you're like, okay, I want to win this. Like, I want to get first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, well, because I ended up being in that position, and I remember actually being there, going, how did I get in this position? Like, because I'm not a competitive person, and so competing has always been weird to me because I want to do my best for the sake of knowing that I can do what I can do. You know what I mean? But I never was like the person that was just like, I need to verify this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like competing just became like the whole pro tour thing. I almost feel like if Pointless wouldn't have happened and I wouldn't have been with that crew of people, I don't know if I would have done as good, because we did good because we were having so much fun all the time. Like if I was going to contests going, oh, Darren Shapiro just did a speedball, how am I going to counteract that? And like that was my only mentality. I don't think I could have done good in that scenario, because we literally, all of us had such pinnacle years through that era. It's because we weren't thinking about the wakeboarding. We were thinking about everything else.
Yeah. It wasn't like your attitude wasn't like, I have to beat Parks. You know, I got to beat Shane. I got to beat everyone here. It's just like, we're all having fun. It looked like Parks was more stoked than you were that you won the pro tour that year.
Oh, dude, and our whole crew had each other's back so hard. Like if we were in a heat against each other, obviously we wanted to stand up and do the best, but we were always rooting for whoever took it. There was never, I can't remember 1 second ever being like, oh, Chad Sharp just beat me. Oh, fuck him. You know what I mean? Like never. That was never even a thought in our minds. We were like so stoked for each other. You know what I mean? Like at all time, because if one of us did good, we all did good, because we were doing this collectively to prove a point, not singularly to prove a point. You know what I mean? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that totally makes sense. And I recommend people watching, rewatching some of those old Pro Tour clips, because I think it kind of shows in how everyone kind of approaches riding and their attitudes after winning, and like seeing people win. It was cool.
And there was crowds there.
Yeah, fat crowds.
I mean, not to commandeer this section right here, but I'm gonna go down another rabbit hole real quick.
It's your pod, dude. Just
I don't understand why there can't. I mean, cable contests in Europe do it. Why can't we have contests that have packed crowds anymore? Wake contests like that. That's another. And I don't want to keep saying, oh, I feel, the same thing about the X Games and the riders these days. But to ride in a contest where the crowd is screaming and bringing this whole nother dynamic of energy, and like that's a big part of what I was talking about, just doing it and like being there and not thinking. You're being carried by this energy that like if you can tap into that energy, it's a whole different dynamic of existence. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think what else was going on at those like Pro Tour stops and those X Games? Obviously, X Games had all the X Games to it, but like those Pro Tour stops, was there like obviously there was a lot of drinking, like people were partying, like
one thing that I can really attribute was the downfall of the Pro Tour was when they got rid of the beer tent.
I am in full agreement there. I mean, that's a kind of a no-brainer, I think. in my
I
opinion.
mean, people would come and make a day of it, party, bring their families, people would be, I remember like showing up to Pro Tours and people are rolling in with their blankets, coolers, the whole family, dogs, you know what I mean? And they'd post up and have fun. And like, dude, I remember like getting done, like you do your run, you had 2 stand-up passes, you're getting ready for your double up. And like the boat would do like a whole pass and you'd come by the crowd. And I just would always like shoot down by the partiers and just be like giving one of these going by, you know what I mean? And the crowd just be like, ah. And like, dude, like you could be going into your double up, like not ever thinking, oh, I hope I land this. No, you're like, I'm going to fuck this thing up.
So you weren't. I feel like right now, or the newer Pro Tour basically is taking it very seriously. Like, we're very serious into wakeboarding and like the scores and like the wake and the boat and the conditions. It's like all very serious, but there's nobody on the shore watching.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I don't get it. Bring back the beer tent. That's step 1, I think.
Step 1.
Step 1 is the beer tent. So
Let's start a petition.
let's start a petition. Bring back the beer tent. I'll be serving beers. I'll do it. Oh man! All right. So, what were some big sponsors at that time? That 2002 year after winning.
Okay, so going into that season, Full Tilt disbanded. I had a stint of riding for Blindside, and then that didn't. They kind of got shaky, and right at that time, I was living with Parks. Parks just signed with Hyperlight. At one of my first X Games, I met Paul O'Brien. He was hanging with Chad. Chad just signed with Hyperlight, and I was just in the crowd actually watching, I believe, motocross when Pastrana launched into the San Francisco Bay. I met Paul O'Brien, and we were hanging out, and he sent me a pair of 3060s to ride because Full Tilt had Sub Rosa boots. They weren't no bueno. And so he sent me a pair of boots and we just kind of became friends. We were like, we had a lot of random similar interests, different kinds of music, just what we were into. We just kind of hit it off and clicked and kind of became friends before anything else. You know what I mean? Even before I rode for him, like we became friends just through industry stuff. So then at that time period, obviously was having a really good season and whatever. And basically, had a talk with Paul, like saying, hey, kind of looking for a new board sponsor, and the rest is history. And, still working with him today.
Yeah. So you signed probably pretty good contract then with Hyperlight when you do get on longer term, I'd guess.
Yeah. Well, the one thing with Paul, and I don't know, I can't speak for everyone that he's ridden or that has ridden, but his and my deals have always been very handshake. I mean, obviously everything always delivers, and the dude is a man of his word and has taken care of me graciously for a very long time. And, but it was never like tooth and nail, like dot the I's, cross the T's style vibe for me and him.
Which is probably something that you were more interested in, that kind of vibe. Okay. Who else are you on at that time? You said you're on Billabong. That's got to be a pretty big check. Billabong
was good. So Taiga, Billabong, Hyperlight. And see, the funny thing back in those days is, like, nowadays I don't think you could pull this off. So I rode for Jet Pilot for vests and wetsuits, but I rode for Billabong for clothes. But Billabong makes vests and wetsuits.
Yeah.
But I only rode for their clothes division. And Jet Pilot makes clothes, but I only rode for there. and it's just how things worked out. It was kind of random. And then this is actually kind of funny too. Sean Dishman was, a dude that has been behind, wakeboard events since the beginning of time. And when he started working for the Pro Tour, when the Pro Tour was hot, and like every year there'd be like a handful of really random new companies that would like just jump on the wakeboarding train and like sponsor the tour, like Binding Lubes and like just weird shit.
Yeah.
Right. So like I remember like Sean Dishman coming up to me, goes, "Hey, I got a company that wants to pay you $500 a month. All you gotta do is put a sticker on your board, and you'll never have to do anything again." So I'm like, okay. And he would do that every year to all the Pointless boys. Just find like new random $500 a month like paychecks for you'd never have to do anything. Put a sticker on your board. They sponsored the tour, and I'm sure that he was probably greasing his wallet
A little bit
on the same side too, which he should, because he
He's hooking it up.
He was hooking up, but he would do that every year. And it was so funny. I don't know if that exists anymore either. Like all these, and that's something that, talking on the Pro Tour, that all happened because of the Pro Tour, because the Pro Tour was an event, because it was a scene, because people were there.
People wanted to go.
Exactly. And that's why those companies, jumped on board and wanted to pay you $500 for a year.
Well, we can get in front of all these. We can get in front of all these faces of these people that might want to buy our shit. So.
Exactly. So yeah, man. Like, I don't know. Like, there needs to be a new way of looking at how to make the Pro Tour really fun again. Because, and I'm not even saying this like, I'm not talking shit on the Pro Tour. I feel like it's just circumstantial. I feel like for the riders' own good, like, I just wish they could experience that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The energy, the vibe, whatever. Because all these kids have taken wakeboarding to such another level. And, like, the stuff that they're doing today is stuff we dreamed of doing off of double-ups that we could never do. You know what I mean? Like, and they're doing this shit off the wake. I mean, I went out the other day. I mean, every time I go out and film with Mossy, Ty, Nick Rapp, I went out with Nick Rappa. I was shooting from the tube, and he was just doing double tantrum to blinds over me, like it was no thing. Like, literally, like, easier than a tantrum to blind, easier than a tantrum. Like, it was crazy. And I'm just sitting in this tube watching this go down going, dear God, like, these kids have really
Stepped it up.
progressed the actual riding so much that, like, that's the shit I think about, is just like, man, I wish that they could experience the feelings that I got to experience because of the energy that wakeboarding brought to people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I don't know. It's tough because I feel like not a whole lot of people can even relate to wakeboarding anymore now. Like you just said, double tantrum to blind off the wake. How many people have a boat that you're capable of doing that off of?
Right.
Not a ton. And how many people even want to do that anymore? Like, it seems like, it hurts too much or whatever. Like, it's kind of gotten separated. I feel like back then you were riding behind a boat that pretty much anyone could get or anyone had, you know?
Oh, dude, my family, when I was 18, my family bought a Mastercraft 205 for 18 grand. And that was a lot of money in those days.
Yeah.
But like, that was accessible for a middle-class family. My dad was a high school teacher. My mom was a oral surgeon assistant. And that was realistic, right? But for, a kid these days, I mean, to be competitive and have what it the gear that it takes to be competitive, man, it's tough.
I think that's the biggest, one of the biggest issues for sure. And the same thing I kind of compared to snowboard super pipe, where there's like, 2 or 3 super pipes in North America. How is a kid going to get good at super pipe? It's probably not,
Yeah.
He can get good at rail riding and stuff because that's super accessible everywhere in the United States. But back then, like you were saying, boats, they're expensive. They're always going to be expensive. It's a boat, but it's accessible. You don't have to be on that whole next level of, money. Good. I do want to talk about getting the pro model with Hyperlite. So how early did those talks start of getting the ERA, the era?
Mm-hmm.
So when did that conversation start happening?
2003, maybe.
Okay,
I
so
think
pretty shortly after you signed.
Yep. Yeah, I believe it was around 2003, somewhere in there. And yeah, the era, and like the first name of the.
Here, we can move this a little bit closer.
Oh no, you're good. It's all good. It's all good.
All right.
So the first name that Paul and I came up with, and this is obviously just where my head was at in those days, in my psychedelic era. The first name, and this would I'm glad we didn't go with this because this wouldn't have transponded to a good line of wakeboards for a long time. But we were gonna call it J27.
Go on.
Because Jimmy, Janice, and Jim Morrison,
Janis Joplin.
all Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, all died when they were 27.
Ooh.
So we were going to call it the J27.
And how old were you at this time?
22.
So you basically are putting a 5-year ticking time bomb on yourself by giving yourself that board. Probably.
Yeah, that wouldn't have.
Put an expiration date on your career.
I've always been like, I don't think I've ever I think the Phoenix project was probably my best pro model and graphic because it was just kind of all my stuff was just always way too me for anyone to understand because it's just in my head. And that's one thing. The one thing in my career is I don't think I could have done maybe better with making everything not be so me for pro model stuff. I'm saying graphically and stuff like that because this is maybe everybody isn't going through a psychedelic phase. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true. But I feel like that's also kind of what makes the pro model cool is like it is you. It's a representation of yourself. But I do kind of see what you're saying there. But maybe not so much of me.
Exactly.
But anyway, so that board with Hyperlite, you said you started talking about in 2003, and then when did it come out?
2004, I think was yeah.
And when did it come out?
In 2004.
Okay, so pretty shortly after you started talking about it.
Yeah, and then I think the era lasted. The best era was the second year of the era, the one with it was a green one, and we came out with these rails that were called fret rails. It had these gouges, and when the board was on edge, it let the water kind of roll. We don't need to talk about that. But anyways, there was one of the graphics had this Bob Marley, a pseudo Bob Marley, and this guy Sun Dong, one of the art guys that was with Hyperlite for a long time. He's an amazing artist, and he drew it, and that one probably goes down in my mind as probably one of my favorite art style graphics in that era of the era. But yeah, that's all I got on that.
So I do want to talk about switching from Hyperlite to Ronix. I don't even know if you call it switching from or going to. You did mention earlier you had a contract with Hyperlite, and then Ronix obviously, or Square One starts.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the boys leave. Parks is leaving.
Yeah, Parks, Chad, Danny, and Emily all left at the same time.
What was that like, being around that?
It was weird. It was a weird. I feel like that was the beginning of a weird time in wakeboarding. From 2006-ish to 2010-ish. I don't know. Somewhere in there. For me, it was I was with Hyperlite finishing out a contract, and obviously they made it worth my while to stay with Hyperlite, and it was cool. But at the same time, my best friends were all riding for Ronix, and there was all this hype, and it just felt like in my heart, like that's where I wanted to be.
It was where you belonged.
Yeah, where I belonged. And and that was a new era of wakeboarding. That was the Phil Sovin, Rusty. The Pro Tour was changing. The vibe of wakeboarding was changing. It was the entrance of the energy drink sponsor era. And that changed the whole vibe of wakeboarding in a way, because it brought in like this outside money that was weird.
How so?
It was like, it made people think that they made it before they made it. Like,
In the sense that you signed that contract pretty soon with an energy drink company, and you're kind of like, it's good money.
yeah. And like, I don't know, it changed like the integrity of, I feel like everything almost. Like the contest scene, like it stopped the party. The energy drinks stopped the party. They're putting a lot of money into it, but the Pro Tour before that was beer sponsors and all this. Now it's, I got to train because I have an energy drink sponsor. I take myself super serious, and contests have to be like this. And if you're not training and doing this regiment or living this lifestyle, you're a loser. And my style of life, living, and my credo of looking at wakeboarding fully, that outlook
Didn't line up with it.
was slightly unacceptable at that point. You know what I mean? A lot of people got hit by that. Chris O'Shea is probably by far the most underrated wake rider and cable rider probably of all time.
You think so?
Dude. One of the sickest. I mean, I could do a whole podcast just talking about Chris O'Shea.
I'd love to have Chris on. I feel like Chris would be so sick.
Oh, dude. He would be great on the show.
All right.
Have you ever met him or talked to him?
No?
You'd really like him.
Sick. All right, Chris, if you're watching, hope
Yeah.
you are.
Oh, she's
You're on the list.
Yeah, dude. He was my boy. But never got any. I mean, he won Rider of the Year, I think, from Alliance one year, and I feel like that he won Rider of the Year and then got fired by Hyperlight.
Sucks.
Because the new era of wakeboarding didn't support our vision. And Chris O was one of the last that, he lived what he did. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like when that changed, like, people, instead of being what you are, you had to make sure you were what you were. If that makes any kind of sense. Like, instead of like living what you're portraying and then trying to live it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You have to make it look like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is when that era switched, and wakeboarding, you couldn't just, the era of just being and fully being what you are, energy drink companies stopped that.
Did any of them approach you ever? Energy drink companies?
You know, 2005 X Games was a rail jam, and I forgot my helmet, and I showed up and I wore Danny Harf's helmet and had a Monster sticker on it. So after that, Monster was like, "Oh yeah," and I won it. And so Monster hit me up a little bit, and they're like, blah, blah. I'm just like, I probably have made some bad decisions of not making money where I could have made money just because I didn't care. Not because I had enough money. I could always use more money, but I didn't drink energy drinks. I didn't like energy drinks. I didn't like what energy drinks were doing to wakeboarding.
Okay. I mean, that's like a tail is not unique to wakeboarding either. You see that in all the other industries where energy drinks come in as well. So it was more so, obviously the money would have been great, but you just didn't believe in what they were doing.
No, just wasn't really my thing, and I really disliked what was happening to wakeboarding at that time period.
In that 2006 to 2010 kind of zone.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's when you do, I guess you said Hyperlite made it worth your while to stay with them for whatever period of time. When did you shift over? Was that 2010, 2011?
2010, yep.
Okay. And did you immediately get your board?
Well, the
Phoenix project.
The cool thing about that is that the Phoenix project, Pat Panakis from the projects and all the all the many accolades that he has done for the sport. That era is like Slingshot was just kind of becoming a thing. Shredtown was kind of becoming just like getting out there, and like flexi boards was not even really like across the, it wasn't really a big thing yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like everyone on cable was still just riding wakeboards, you know what I mean? And so Pat was talking with Paul, and they were already kind of working on this project, and I feel like the Phoenix was kind of like a hybrid boat kind of flexi board, but I feel like it was a little bit ahead of its time for that time period. But so as soon as I signed with Ronix, and like I said, I don't think I ever actually signed a contract. I mean,
with Ronix, really?
No. Talk, have a good talk with Paul, and
how does that work? How do you get paid then if you don't have you don't sign a contract?
Well, you get on the payroll,
like as an employee or whatever.
No, not as an employee.
Or team rider.
Still, I mean, all riders are, for every company, is all 1099. You know what I mean? A individual contractor. Yep. But yeah, exactly. So yeah, like I said, I've always just had a handshake deal with Paul because, I mean, I feel like we've just always been on a different personal level when it comes to that type of stuff, which is cool, and I am thankful for that for sure. But yeah, so we started working. Like when I started with Ronix, Paul's like, "Oh, well, we're working on this board that I think would be like right up your alley," because at that point, like I was like riding a lot of rails, and I was on Hyperlite even before the Hyperlite switch. I don't know if you remember the Hyperlite Rome.
What is that, a rail board?
It's a wooden rail board.
Is it the weird looking one?
Well, there's a couple different ones. There was one that just looked like a big pill.
Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of.
And then there was one that looked like more of like, it had like a cut, like kind of like a figure eight kind of. But those were just wood flexi boards that were, made just kind of for fun. Before like, cable and park riding really became what it is today. So I was always like at the last carnival. Do you know what the carnival is?
Oh yeah, the park's kind of rail contest at the projects.
Yep. At the last carnival, I was the only person at that contest that I rode a flexi board. Everyone else rode boat boards. I was the only person that rode a soft board.
Did you turn some heads, or were people kind of like, what the hell are you doing?
I don't think people got what I was doing. I don't think boat riders that were riding rails were still boat riders.
Yeah.
Like now you're like a park rider or a cable rider. There's a couple people that can, go both ways. But I feel like all boat riders were rail riders back in those days, but it was a different style.
Yeah.
It was hitting rails behind a boat or a jet ski on your wakeboard. You know what I mean? So, yeah, so that being that, going to the Phoenix project, it was pretty much just right up my alley of a board that was fun, soft, and kind of more like a free ridey.
All around fun board.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But still pretty capable, on both sides of the park and the boat there. Because, I mean, I don't know. I watched the Phoenix project video, and it's definitely got to be one of the first boards that truly flexes, like you were doing a nose press, tail press. And it's truly flexing as opposed to leaning up, on the nose or leaning back on the tail, and there's no flex involved. You're just pivoting kind of on the board there. So I guess, was it a little bit scary leaving Hyperlight for Ronix? Did you get any flack from like your current teammates? Like, I'm sure Murray was on the team then. Was Rusty on then?
Yeah. I'd say I didn't get any flack. I would say that yeah, I used to like, I always got along really good with Murray. We did funny stuff. This was also before its time. I don't know if you ever saw this on YouTube, the Murr Show. One of the first streaming things that you could do. We did this show called the Murr Show, and it was like a late night talk show. And there's one on YouTube. I'll send you the link.
Yeah.
So Dano was the announcer. I was like the music guy, and Murray was like the late night guy. You know what I mean? And we would have guests, and we'd make prank phone calls and but prank industry people.
Yeah.
And it was like way ahead of its time, like, because it was like you had to like log out, you had to go to like some website, log into it, and to even see it. It was like a whole process to do it, and it was a whole process to see it.
Yeah.
So like not a lot of people saw it. Like nowadays, like I feel like it would go over maybe a little better than it did at the time. But the point of where I'm going is, yeah, I missed Murray, but
He's still around here somewhere, isn't he?
yeah,
He's big time now.
We're all good.
It's big time. But so you didn't get really any negative response or anything from?
No, I think to tell you the truth, everyone knew that that's where I should be. So
Everybody's on the same page.
yeah.
Okay, that's cool. That's sick. I wasn't sure. But what appealed to you besides the obviously going back to like the family aspect of Square One? What else appealed to you about Ronix other than that aspect?
I just feel like obviously the family aspect. I don't know, just where I belonged is where I mean I know how to work with everyone, and I also I've kind of felt like I could see more of a long-term relationship of being able to evolve with them rather than just be a rider.
Yeah, get more on the behind the scenes side and really help them, with that aspect of it.
And like by that time, like I think 2011 was when we filmed Defy, and I think that's when I won Trick of the Year that year for doing that mute mob into
the pool at
the
Radar.
pool, and I feel like that was kind of my swan song.
Okay, as in like, I'm going to start shifting now from athlete to, behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Is that a hard thing to do? Like a hard pill to swallow per se?
No.
Or were you ready?
To tell you the truth, like I watched so many guys on the pro tour burn themselves out and not know when enough was enough. So many guys could have lasted so much longer in the industry if they would have made a transformation while they had a name and had momentum. I feel like if you burn yourself out trying to be something, but nowadays there are athletes. I mean, obviously different level, but Kelly Slater. I mean, there's people that are break the mold. You know what I mean? That like are different. But like for me, like I just all of a sudden felt like it was time to. I was ready to make a change. I was married. I wanted to be a part of it deeper, kind of. I felt like, being a rider, you can affect things by what you do, how you handle yourself, how you ride. But I felt like I'd have a greater impact behind the scenes.
Make some decisions and like.
And to tell you the truth, being behind the lens and helping out all of our riders and being there for these kids, like I feel like I don't know. I don't have anything in me that makes me like. I was never kind of a prove yourself kind of person, anyways. But like, I don't have anything that like when I was doing that, like that I felt like I didn't do. So like, I was like ready to help another generation and help a company with kind of the vision that I had. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you could. I mean, it's more using your brain and like the ideas you have to try and guide and shift where the company's going, as opposed to just riding for them, collecting a check, and kind of giving them feedback on boards or whatever, stuff like that. Was Lake Ronix a thing right when it started?
Lake Ronix, basically, let's see, what year was that? 2012. So like, I was still kind of not really seriously riding anymore, but 2012 is when I started doing all the Ronix social media and like kind of got reignited on filming. Cause like we all obviously like in the Pointless days, we all filmed everything ourselves, for the Hyperlight movie. What was it called? Counterfeit This.
Yeah.
We all filmed that too. And then like, I just kind of, I always really enjoyed filming and doing that, and just kind of fell off of it. And then when, we were having our talks, Paul and I, and just like, what do you see happening? You know what I mean? And he's like, well, social media is becoming a thing. We don't have a social media person. What do you think? I was like, well,
sure.
Let's see what happens.
Why not?
Exactly.
So you've been doing that since 2012.
Yeah.
Okay. So like, I guess I kind of want to get into what your role is now with Square One. So like, what would you say your job title or what your day-to-day is?
My job title is the Swiss Army knife.
Do it all.
No, I mainly content creation, social media. I help out a bunch with the team. I wouldn't say I'm like the exact team manager, you know what I mean? But like, I definitely organize all the stuff for, daily shoots for content, product shoots, and I try to be there for our crew in any way possible and help out, because I definitely feel like I was super blessed with really, really great influence in my life from other wakeboarders, Kobe's, Chris Bischoff's, so many really good influences on me. But try to do that. And then obviously Lake Ronix, we do Square One U, which you've attended, which is fun, where we have our dealers come down and teach them about the product and then bring them out on the water so they can all experience it firsthand. And just the whole Lake Ronix progression, that was a lot. There's basically, 3 or 4 of us that are managing 235 acres. So that keeps us busy, and the constantness of social media is kind of a beast.
Yeah, that's to put it lightly, for sure.
Yeah.
So you do social media, you help out with all like the product and video shoots, I'm guessing, and then help out with everything at Lake Ronix. Why is there not power run to the 2 towers? Why do you have to have a generator?
Because running power from the road that distance is insanely expensive.
Is it? Okay.
Cheaper than a
Generator's
big
way
generator is
way
way
cheaper.
cheaper.
Okay. I was just wondering when we were there. But shoot, okay. So you made that transition into the behind the scenes role with Ronix. Or I guess Square One, you help out with the radar side of things too.
Yeah, I do all the product shoot stuff for radar too.
Okay. We were talking about shooting skis, water skiing versus shooting wakeboarding. Can you kind of compare and contrast the two real quick, just to break it down?
Yeah. I mean, shooting wakeboarding, depending what style, you're basically, following the rider, making sure you're framed up, following the rider. But what I was saying earlier about skiing is, the cool thing about shooting skiing is where they're going to be every time. They're not changing that up. So you can set up a cool shot, you can vary it, and you can dial something in, and I don't know, it's a little bit more orchestrated. I don't know. It's just, I guess, more or less predictable.
Yeah, which is probably good for the person behind the scenes. You can or behind the lens. You can really get funky and creative.
No, it's fun to shoot. And honestly, like, one of the things that I like shooting, why I like shooting skiing, is literally shooting slow-mo stuff and like dialing in on a buoy, but the water movement.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
throwing big walls.
Just whacking walls, and just dude, there's some amazing just illumination that you like you just never. That's the thing that keeps it exciting is the water movement. You know where they're going to be every single time, but the water is always different.
Yeah.
And like I always used to say, I mean, this is going back a long time. Parks and I used to always say this when people would get too serious about wakeboarding. We'd always say, yeah, sometimes you just gotta reach down and touch the water, and just realize it's water.
It's like if you're on the internet too much, you just gotta go touch some grass. Just go touch some grass.
Exactly.
Touch
You
the
know,
water.
it just kind of brings you back, centers you a little bit, and you're like, yeah, sometimes you just gotta touch the water.
It's a cool place to be, around the water.
Exactly.
This is awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. I do want to talk about Clear Lake. So how long have you been here?
This November 5th will be 20 years.
Shit. Okay. And the same place?
Yep.
Or wow. Why Clear Lake? Why did you buy a house here?
Well, so I was living, this is 2001. I was living with Parks over on Lake Hiawassee, which is just a couple miles to the west. And had a insane season of 2002, and my parents said, you got to do something with this money.
Were you just stacking it up? You just had like a huge bank account of money?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that like we were going back, that era of wakeboarding was just truly blessed to be a part of that, because there was really good salaries and really good contest payouts, and I was lucky enough to win a lot of those contests at that time period. So yeah, my parents were like, you need to make some sort of investment. So I started looking at houses, and so this lake, when I moved here, Thomas Harrell lived here, and Nick Weinecker, Nick and Sonia bought a house a couple months before me down the road, and they're like, oh, come check out this neighborhood. And this is kind of like 20 years ago. This neighborhood's come a long way, because everybody refers to this neighborhood as the Hood because it's surrounded kind of by the Hood.
The jail's like not too far.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah,
Or booking
33rd.
center.
33rd's down the street. But it was, a lake with canals, basically downtown Orlando, and it was like a whole community on the water, and just seeing like the potential of what could happen here was kind of cool. And Central Florida, there's no place in the rest of the country where you can buy waterfront for as cheap as you can buy here.
Yeah, I was looking at houses just last night on Zillow or whatever, and it's still like
it's
right now it's still not ridiculously expensive.
And it's gone up a lot compared to those days.
Yeah.
So it was just worked out, and this place came up, and me and a buddy came and checked it out, and I was like, I didn't even go look at another house. I just saw this house, and I was like, there's some really random things like that like reminded me of weird things. Like I remember at my grandma's house in Chicago, and like just like weird things that like all of a sudden hit me, and I was just like, you know what? I think we're gonna do this. Still here 20 years. Still here 20 years later.
It's a sick place you got here.
Oh, thank you.
What's it like living on, like, obviously Clear Lake has a ton of history. Is it pretty cool to live? You know, you've been here for a long time, to live on such a lake with such a storied history when it comes to wakeboarding.
Yeah, it's really been a pretty serious community when you look at the amount of people that have lived and still live here that, for wakeboarding. There's been double or nothings out here. There's been feet on fires. Dano lived with me for 8 years.
At this house?
Yep. When I first moved here. Yep. And so yeah, we did a lot of barefooting and just funny stuff. But this neighborhood has been awesome because it's a community of people on the water, but also, there's been times also where I've been like, this might be a little too much.
What do you mean?
The scene is always here.
Too close to downtown, like a lot of partying going on?
That's what I'm saying. Like,
okay,
it's so easy to like
get lost in that.
Yeah, and a lot of people, a lot of young riders like moved here and like rented houses and like got way too deep, way too fast.
Yeah, you said earlier, not earlier today, but earlier in an interview that, living on Clear Lake can do two things for your career. It can catapult it, or it can trap you in the downtown scene. So you've seen quite a few people kind of get trapped into the partying side of things.
Yeah, it'll happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you come down here and you're like, holy shit, I'm in the wakeboard mecca. And you can go downtown, especially at that time period, you could go downtown any night and run into a Parks, a Chad, a Brian Grubb, a me. And it just seemed like too easy and too innocent until all of a sudden you realize, like,
I haven't been wakeboarding.
I'm like, that's all you're doing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, trust me, I've had to check myself. Every one of us has had to check ourselves.
Just partying too much?
Just too easy to get lost in it.
Yeah. When did you have to check yourself last? Probably not too recently, I would imagine.
You know, every now and then I'll maybe overserve myself, but I mean, like, not downtown anymore.
Yeah.
Just in the backyard.
Stumbling back inside. It happens. I guess I was interested to hear about, people getting kind of swallowed up by partying, because I feel like Orlando is definitely it's Florida in general, I guess, is a
Florida in general. It's easy to happen, man. I've seen it happen, and the kids that really have had longevity in this sport are the ones that know how to have a good time, but knowing enough is enough.
Yeah, it's that perfect balance.
Because you have to be able to do both. If you are one of those people that just can't make it in the downtown scene or like the fun side, then you kind of get written off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know if I was talking to Dylan Miller or Gunther about, you have to know how to party in the sense that you have to know how to, like, socialize and, like, have a good time, let loose. But that doesn't mean by any means you have to, get hammered 7 nights out of the week.
Exactly. But yeah, you have to be able to just hang.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and people coming like me when I was a kid, like people moving down here from the Midwest or whatever, and then all of a sudden it's just like, it's just like everything at your fingertips.
Yeah.
So you just have to just be aware of yourself.
Check yourself.
Yeah.
Quite often. I do want to talk about Herb O'Brien. So is it Herb O'Brien?
Yeah.
Okay. When did you first meet him, and how was your relationship with him?
Well, I actually was lucky enough I think I kind of had a pretty cool relationship with Herb. One thing that I can say that completely changed my life and why I felt like, going to Ronix from Hyperlight was more like my home where I was no joke, 5 minutes after I get off the podium, 2002 last Pro Tour stop, when I won the tour and won the tour stop, my phone rings, and obviously I had Paul's number in there. It's a 425 number, which is Seattle, and I'm like, huh. So I just pick it up, and it's, hey Eric, congratulations, it's Herb O'Brien. And I was just like, what? I was like, I literally been off the podium for 5 minutes, and the owner, the legend, like, just, he's a legend. I mean,
one of the kings. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, did more for the sport in general than almost anybody. Calls me and I just want to thank you. I'm just so proud of you. And you're, just like literally just praising me and telling me how proud he is, and like a proud dad calling me,
Just genuinely happy.
Just genuinely happy, and just saying thank you for riding our stuff. And I'm just like, that right there, like, literally, like, that's something that, like, I think about, like, the effect that you can have on someone in a positive way, like that phone call right there changed my life in the fact that basically my loyalty to that family was solidified.
Yeah.
From there on. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's, personal things like that make a real big difference in this world and can mean a lot to how you shape your life,
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. It's definitely a cool story. I feel like all of his history and then kind of continuing it into Square One's legacy is is definitely a cool side of the sport that I feel like a lot of people don't know about when they're just kind of getting into wakeboarding.
Yeah. One of my last memories of him was when we were filming for Defy at that pool, because whenever we would set up like all the years that like for like Welcome, all those old movies that were all filmed at Radar and all that stuff, like when we'd be riding, he'd be down there like in it. Like he thought it was so cool.
Yeah.
Like you could see like him getting like giddy. Like
you can't fake that. Like
no,
he's not faking
exactly.
it.
Like he's not faking it. Like he's in there, like watching it, and like you'd get done, he'd come and ask you like a bunch of like questions. He'd like, "Hey bud, like, what'd you think?" Like just like, and I just remember like stepping away from some of those random conversations with him, going, "Fuck, man,
That guy's cool.
it's cool."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang, that's super sick. And you said that was when you were filming, when you got Trick of the Year with that back mob.
Yeah. But like literally, like he was standing next to the pool the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Came up to me right after I whipped in. He's like, "Oh, bud, that was sick."
It was sick.
He was cool, man. I feel very privileged that I got to, personally know him.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah.
I don't have a whole lot else here, unless there's anything else you want to talk about, anything you want to get off your mind, anything you want to chop it up about.
No, man. Just, I feel like wakeboarding's been very good to me, and I'm very fortunate to have lived what I've gotten to live and witness and see and be a part of and hang with amazing group of people throughout my career in this industry. And really everything I do now is trying to ensure that it exists for more people to enjoy and be a part of, and for people to have experiences like I've gotten to have. So
that's the goal going forward.
Yep.
So that's kind of what your goal is from here on out, is to continue the legacy almost of.
Yeah, and like just even like all of our riders, like why I take what I do seriously these days is basically just because I care about these kids and I see myself in them.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So yeah, it's good shit, man.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody in the wakeboard industry is definitely thankful to have you in it. You're definitely a real one, a good one to have around. So
appreciate it.
We're all thankful for that. Anyone else you want to thank, or anything you want to get off your mind there?
No, yeah, thank all the Square One family. Thank everybody that that's been good to me in my life, and hopefully I can give back as much as I've gotten.
Love it. All right. Well, I think we did it. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah, let's get a brewski, huh?
Yeah, let's grab a brewski.
All right.
All right. Thanks everyone.